Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Hook. I'm your host, Keith Butler, and we're here on the east side of Detroit. We're doing one on location today, something a little bit different. Instead of the 6-hole studio, we're on location at a friend's house. My guest today, Mr. Matthew Rojeck. And instead of talking about politics and and sports like we normally do a lot, we're going to talk about a program that he has called Alpha. And let me introduce you. Hey, Mr. Rojeck. Can I call you Matt?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, I prefer Matthew.
Okay, Matthew.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
How
Keith.
are you doing today?
Couldn't be better.
Okay, Matthew, before we get into your program, it's called Alpha, right?
Correct.
Okay, before we get into it, let's get a little bit of history about you, where you started, how'd you come to this, just a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. 66 years old, happily married for 43 years, 2 kids, 6 grandkids.
Oh.
Started my own business about 1990, and at some point in time, probably 2004, my wife and I have been involved in churches since we got married, and I just said, you know what, I can't keep going to church on Wednesday night and Sunday night. I got to do something. I mean, I keep hearing the message of the gospel. I've already believed it. I want to do something with work. And so I called up a friend in Detroit who I had heard about, said, hey, can you use somebody down here? I'll come on Wednesdays and Saturdays and give you my time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been on a bunch of foreign missions trips, all construction. And gal's name's Lisa Johannan, and she said, come on down. So for 7 years, Betty and I, my wife, came down every Wednesday and Saturday, and we did tutoring, we did mentoring, we cleaned people's houses. Our church actually bought an old dry cleaner on the west side,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a project manager, and we gutted it top to bottom
Mm-hmm.
and turned it into a fresh produce market that's still working. It's called Peaches and Greens.
Okay.
And so it was a blast. And we would bring our church down on Wednesdays and Saturdays to work, do the work of the gospel. So near the end of that 7 years, so probably 2010, we had heard about a church down here, Mac Ave Community Church, and we came down and we liked what they were doing. And one of the things that was very interesting to us is in order to be a member, you had to live in the zip code.
Mm.
So they said, hey, would you guys be willing to move down here? And Betty and I thought about it, and we had built our retirement home. We downsized. We raised our kids in Plymouth and downsized and built a house. We said, well, you know what? We'll commute for a year to make sure it's a good fit. And after a month of commuting, we just said...
It's just too much.
Yeah, we just said, we're done. So we sold our house.
Mm.
So we moved down in 2011 and absolutely have just loved the neighborhood and loved the community. Again, 98% of our congregation lives in this zip code.
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking the dogs, I see them. I'm at the store, I see them. We do things together, and it's just been a great fit. So like I say, I retired about 2 years ago. My wife and I have been traveling, and while we were traveling, I just said, that's my business consumed an awful lot of my attention, my bandwidth, my mind space, and I like engaging with people. And when we get back, I would like to do something like that, engage with people. And obviously, I would also like to share my faith. And so I was aware of Alpha. It started in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, about 30 years ago, my wife went to a training seminar on it. She participated in that, and then we just had gone to a different church. But as I looked into who Alpha was, it fit me as a person, because I've always believed that engagement and building relationship oftentimes is drawing out from the other person through questions. You get to find out who they are, what they like, what they don't like, and that's my way of engaging, and that's a key component to the Alpha program.
Okay. Speaking of Alpha, what is Alpha exactly, and what is its purpose?
So Alpha was formed to create an in-person group dialogue
Mm-hmm.
about a Christ-centered faith.
Mm-hmm.
And it has 3 key components. The first component is connection. And that connection is formed by, literally for the last 5 months since I've decided to engage in this, everywhere I go, I almost always ask people 2 questions. Do you like to read?
Mm-hmm.
What do you like to read? 3 questions. What kind of music do you like? And that just starts the conversation going. I do it at the Y. I do it when I'm at the coffee shop. I do it like wherever I'm at. And so the connection component, and with my neighbors, so the connection component is one that I make connecting with people, usually, honest, all the time it's been strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've invited them to participate in this thing. And then, so there's the initial connection, and then during the Alpha program itself, there is a connection, and we'll get to it in a minute. That's the third one, the conversation. But next comes what's called content. And content literally is about a 15-minute dialogue, usually revolving around a question that is answered from a gospel perspective.
Okay.
And some of those are like, is there more to life than what I'm feeling right now? Why is there evil? How do I make my life count? And of course, there's like kind of Christian questions. Who was Jesus? What's the church? Why do we need a church?
Yeah, pretty heavy questions.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think all of your listening audience would say, yeah, I've asked that question at one point in time or another.
I have to.
Yeah, sure. And so, so after the content of showing a video, we have a conversation, and I'm going to be the moderator. Mm-hmm. And again, for me, this is, I wouldn't say this is probably going to be my favorite spot. You know, I've taught Sunday school before. I've lectured at seminars, and it's always important to me to find out the audience that I'm talking to. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is to engage with them and engage in conversation, because I can talk a lot, and I like myself, and I'll talk about myself. I'll talk about who I am and what I've done. But this is specifically about drawing the guests in to have conversation about the content we just heard. And so literally 3 weeks ago, I was in Nashville for a 2-day seminar. It's their Alpha's yearly seminar in America.
Okay.
And they just emphasize the moderator's job is only to draw out from the guests. I am never going to say, no, Keith, that's wrong. The Bible doesn't say that. No, Buddha isn't God. I'm not going to say any of that. I want this to be about the group and their discussion. And I love that component, because you and I both know, black and white, how often do we have legitimate conversations? Democrat, Republican, how often do we have conversations about that? Yeah. Immediately you begin to judge someone, and you're all, yeah, you know what, that dude's not in my whatever, and dialogue breaks down, and that's what's missing. And so, again, the connection component, going back to that a bit, is I love the face-to-face dialogue. I was walking up to the Y in downtown, and this 70-year-old black dude says to me, hey, come here, I got a question for you. And he was talking with this gal. He invites me into this conversation. He doesn't know me from anybody. And it's a young black gal, and they're talking, and he asked me a question. And we just had a 15-minute conversation. And since then, he's the guy that invited me to the congregation. Okay. And, man, every time I see him at the Y, we just sat, hey, what's going on? And, like, that needs to happen more. Yeah. And so for me, the face-to-face, that's why I love Alpha, the conversation, the questions, the open, honest dialogue, including, as you brought up, hard questions. Yeah. Why does God allow pain? Yeah. Man, I don't have an answer for that. There's some ideas in Scripture that we can talk about, but again, I'm looking really, really forward to hearing other people's dialogue about that.
Yeah, and I was about to ask you, is there a religious background to this? But you've answered that. This is a religious program. Yeah. And the thing that interests me about you is you're not a minister or a pastor.
Correct.
So you just, what would you call yourself? Just a minister of Alpha, or just
an old retired guy who likes conversations? Honestly, that's what it's about. Frankly, I hope no Christians come to this thing. I would like people who have no faith or people who have other faith.
Questions about their faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not a minister. You know, one thing I wanted to bring up about this conversation. So, when I decided to go ahead and participate in this Alpha program and be a dialoguer, we were on a Zoom meeting with about 30 people from across the country.
So Alpha is nationwide.
Yeah.
It's worldwide.
Worldwide.
Okay.
Again, it started in the UK, but yeah, it's worldwide.
Yeah.
There was 2,000 people at the American conference. And I mean, again, they've got conferences in Europe as well. But we're on a Zoom call, and one of the moderators who's paid staff on Alpha said that Alpha can run like 8 to 12 weeks. And you don't have to come the whole time. That's not imperative. But at the end of their 11-week session, there was a woman there who literally had not said a word all 11 weeks. Not a word. And the last session, the moderator says, okay, hey, we'd love to know, how has this impacted you? Has it impacted you? Has it answered some questions? Is there something we can do better? And it's just an end time of this relationship building. This gal was the first one to raise her hand, and she said, I came here to see if you guys were safe. And she said, now that I know that you're safe, because you've proven to me that you're safe. And she went on to describe, literally, I think it was the most horrific thing I've ever heard that she experienced for like 3.5 years of her life.
Wow.
I can't even describe it. And she said, but now that you guys have proven yourself to know that, I know that I'm safe. She shared this thing with this entire group of people, and she went on to become a Christian, and now she's like an Alpha leader trainer. So for me, providing that safe space for people to have conversation and not to get swatted down, I'm really excited about it.
Excuse me. What can participants expect to get out of Alpha when they come? Outside of it being a safe space, and what else can they expect?
Great question. Again, everything is going to be from a biblical perspective. And if I can backpedal a second, one of the other things that I love about the conversation is I have found that because of the digital age and us not sitting face-to-face talking, it's very easy for me to insult you. I don't do Facebook or anything, but I can insult you, and I can spit something out of my mouth that is vile or critical or judgmental. And what happens, has been my experience, is oftentimes I hear people complain about something, and I say, well, why do you say that? And the reality is they don't have a good answer other than they've heard 10 other people say that. And so, I mean, you and I both know plenty of Christians have done stupid stuff. There's been pain inflicted by Christians on other people. And
well, not just Christians, religion, period.
Absolutely.
All facets of religion, all beliefs, have, been throughout the century, throughout the history of the earth, the world.
But I heard a guy speak the other day, a guy named Douglas Murray, and he said something that really blew my mind. I'd never heard about this before, or I've never heard anyone say this before. He's not even a Christian, and he defends the Christian faith. He said, whatever religion you're looking at, look at what the founder did and what the founder said, because his adherents are probably going to screw it up. And he said, what did Jesus say? Love your enemies. Turn the other cheek. Jesus was not a warrior. And so what I'm hoping for them to get out of it is probably twofold. The safe space and for their voice to be heard. But the other thing is to hear firsthand what the scriptures say about a variety of topics, like out of the gospel's mouth itself. I mean, there's a guy speaking, but he quotes scripture. And when I talk to people very often, literally, I carry Bibles in my car, and I'll just say, hey, would you consider reading the Gospel of John for yourself? You know, another perfect example, Keith, is I've heard people say, well, the Bible's full of contradictions. And I heard a guy, R.C. Sproul, that I really like, and he said, well, so is the English language. And he said, think about this. Look before you leap. He who hesitates is lost. Those are completely in opposition, but in their context, they work and they're truth. And so what some people see as contradictions, I would just say you got to look at them in the context that they're given and recognize that they're truths in that situation. I don't know if that makes sense, but so again, I hope people get to hear their voices heard, and I also hope that they hear, again, from the book itself, not somebody else's idea of what it said or what their grandfather told them or whatever it was. So I'm hoping firsthand for them to experience that.
Where do you personally see this going here? How long has it been going on here in this city and at your church? And where do you expect it to go? Where do you hope it goes from here?
Another great question. It's never happened that I know of. I know for sure not this zip code.
So you're kind of the starter, the founding father of it here?
Yeah, sure. If you want,
you can take the credit.
Sure. If you want to put it that way, sure. And to be very frank with you, my church is not running it. My wife and I are.
Okay.
Now, and the reason for that is, again, we're not going to hold it at our church, because if I got invited to a church and I wasn't a Christian, to me that would be intimidating and everything. We're holding it at the Commons, which is a coffee shop, laundromat.
I thought it was like at the church's basement or something.
Nope.
Okay.
No, we're holding it at a coffee shop. Okay. And again, trying to assist in a safe space. So, again, from what I know, I'm sure it's the first one in the zip code. And what am I hoping it to become? Wow. Again, the congregation thing we talked about, it started with a couple of people. This gal bought the coffee shop, and now there's 300-400 people on Thursday nights rocking the music. That's just a blast. And so I don't know that I necessarily have any anticipations for what it to become, other than conversation. These conversations, I mean, the people at the Y, the people at the coffee shop, literally the people I'm walking down the street, and I engage with them, and we just have dialogue, and friendships began. I met these two 40-year-old black dudes the other day, and we were at a restaurant. I meet them. We get there at 6:30. We close the restaurant at 11 o'clock, just talking. Two dudes I never met before, and now we're planning to go to Europe together. I mean, sorry. I mean, it's just like...
No, it's okay. But why do you think conversation is so important? Because you emphasize that a lot.
Sure.
Why do you think that is so important for, complete strangers, you and me, people you meet on the street? Why is that so important?
I mean, there's a couple of reasons. One, again, as I said before, I think there's sometimes people are parrots. I hear YouTube, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then I say, somebody asked me a question, and I say, blah, 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 blah. When I say to you, this just happened. I just had blood drawn. I say to the nurse, hey, do you like to read? And she says, oh, yeah. I said, what do you like to read? And she looks at me for honestly 5 straight seconds, and then she goes, I don't like to read. And it was hilarious. The right answer was, yes, of course I like to read. I'm an intellectual, and I read all the time, and I'm well-versed in everything. And then she realized, no, I don't like to read. And it was hilarious to see her come to the conclusion. So to me, in conversation, you and I are talking, when you espouse something, I think then you wake up and say, man, dude, what did I just say? Do I really believe that? And if not, then why am I saying it? I'm saying it because 42 other people that I know say it. And that doesn't work for me. Another, I got to tell you, so I would say I'm a Republican. Does that mean that I think all Democrats are idiots? Of course not. But I think the perception would be is Republicans hate Democrats and Democrats hate Republicans. The idea is, Keith, you and I both know there's good ideas on both sides. And we're fools not to listen. We're fools not to engage. So conversation is important because I believe it develops like the reality of your conviction or the lack of reality of your conviction. And the other thing is, as we dialogue, again, when Betty and I moved down here, we were the first white people in our block.
Mm-hmm.
Dude across the street comes over and says, man, we are glad you're here. Your family, he points his finger at us and he says, you need anything, you come to me. Mm-hmm. You're in my neighborhood now. Mm-hmm. Whoa, what a welcoming friend. And so, he didn't care that I was white. Mm-hmm. He didn't care that I was a suburbanite moving down into his neck of the woods, that it could have looked like I was buying a house because we bought it in 2010 where prices were low, people coming and flipping. He didn't know that.
Right.
But he was willing to engage. And because of that, we got a lifelong friendship. Mm-hmm. So I love just the idea of engaging, letting your voice be heard, developing the reality or lack of reality of your conviction, and then also really getting to know other people that, like, man, we're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. What's special about Alpha to you outside of the conversation, getting to know people? What is it about Alpha that moves you, that makes you feel the best? That's a hard question.
Yeah, it is, because I think 90% of what I've said is why. But I will tell you this. So at the conference, and this, for people who don't have faith, this might not jive with their brains, mm-hmm. but there were, I listened to Catholic priests, mm-hmm. and I listened to people who spoke in tongues, and from Pentecostal to Catholic, and we all got along. There was every denomination you could possibly imagine. And do I disagree with some of the stuff? Of course I do. Sure. We're humans. Mm-hmm. You're never going to agree 100%. But that does not mean I can't walk arm in arm with them. Right. And so for me, the idea that Alpha is not denominational bound is just wonderful. And again, I love that they tell me as the moderator, keep your mouth shut, keep your opinions to yourself.
And listen to what people have to say.
Exactly. We get our time by showing the video, and that's our mouthpiece. Mm-hmm. And then, man, it's up to the conversation to happen, and you keep your mouth shut and just draw out the guests to talk.
Okay, now, how long have you been doing this?
I haven't. Oh, this is the first time. September 3rd or September 8th is the first time.
Oh, so you haven't even done it yet?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Grassroots, baby.
Well, I think after you do it, we're going to have to come back and find out how things went, what you got out of it, if it went like if it flip-flowed like you wanted it to.
Sure.
But that's exciting that this is the first time. Yeah. So are you a little nervous about it, or?
No, not at all. You know what? Honestly, even if nobody shows up, mm-hmm. all the conversations that I've had leading up to people, I've had to get out of my comfort zone. I mean, I walk up to perfect strangers and I give them a little invite card with all the information, mm-hmm. and then I tell them real briefly, a minute spiel. It's been great for me to get out of my comfort zone. And again, there's been one person who has said no thanks. Everybody else looks me in the eyes and says, man, thanks for barging into my space and talking to me about this. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we will have to get back together and see what happens. I'm excited about it.
Okay, so tell us where it's going to be, how people can get in touch with you if they want more information. Sure. Phone number, web, email, anything like that.
Sure. My phone number is 313-986-3764. That's probably just the easiest way. And if anybody is either interested in talking about it or interested in registering, because we're providing a free dinner, mm-hmm. and we would love to be able to, figure out how many people are coming. So mm-hmm. It's starting September 8th, which is a Sunday evening. September 8th, Sunday evening at 5 o'clock, and it's at a place called The Commons, which is 7900 Mack Avenue.
Okay.
And The Commons, again, here's when we were talking earlier about our church. Our church bought this building for $1,500 in 2010.
Wow.
And through grants, through the Kresge Foundation and a couple of other grants, we put I think $1.25 million in it. Wow. Completely revived it. And the First story is a laundromat coffee shop. Second story, there's offices, and then there's meeting spaces, and that's where we're meeting. And it's a cool place to hang out. We've got a bunch of different things. Like the third Saturday of every month is open mic. And I went for like the first time since my wife got back. Man, there was like 10 people doing rap. There's people singing old Motown. I did like a quote, like an exhortational quote. And there was a 16-year-old girl who did poetry, and she memorized all her poetry, and she spoke this piece of poetry out. It was 2 pages long, and she nailed it, and it was rocking. So anyways, I love it's at the Commons, 7900, September 8th, 5 o'clock. Please call me so we know how to register.
How many people are you hoping to come? And what would you be happy with, this being the first time?
Like, you're going to laugh. I'd be happy with 2 people.
Yeah.
I just want to start the ball rolling.
Yes.
And show the community we can actually talk, even though I'm an old white dude. We can
Oh, you're not that old.
But again, if we can show the community that we can talk and that we want to participate in conversations, even the difficult ones, I'd love, I think a comfortable group would probably be 10 people.
Yeah.
I'd be the moderator, and I think 10 people, because you know that there's going to be, 2 who want to talk the whole time, and then there's like 3 or 4 who don't want to say a word.
A couple who just came to eat.
Yep. So.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot right here.
Oh, come on.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's act like this is September 8th and you're opening the program. Let me hear your spiel. Let me see, get a little preview of what people can expect.
So after, I assume this is after we've watched the video?
However, the program, do you open it up or do you?
Yeah, so again, we'll have a dinner. And during the dinner is probably where I'll give most of my spiel. And the spiel is going to be something very similar to, hey, there are those of you who are going to want to have all the conversation and you're going to monopolize the conversation. We're not doing that. There's others of you out there who are probably pretty shy, introverted, and don't want to say anything. Your voice is important in this conversation. And even if it's just a sentence, I would beg you to consider adding your voice to the soup of this conversation.
I like that.
And I'm going to be the moderator, and so I'm going to snuff out anything that's going in the wrong direction, not from a point of view of your opinion, but if somebody is running away with the conversation, I'm not going to allow that to happen, because I want everybody as much to participate. And if you got to be quiet, that's okay as well, but I want you to recognize, like, this is a body, this is a community, and that community needs every single voice is important.
You mentioned your wife earlier. Is she going to participate? Is she going to like co-monitor? Or
Originally she was gonna, and as she's thought about it, she's going to be the cook. And I've got 2 other young friends who are helping. Actually, one of these black cats who I met is going to come, and just found out. Yeah, he's going to come, and then another guy that I've been friends with, that he's just admin. He's just going to take care of all the admin stuff. So
okay,
yeah.
We're going to wrap it up here. But what would you like to say in closing?
I would say I encourage anybody who's listening that has any inkling at all about this to give it a shot. I believe truth very often gets overshadowed by the loudest voice.
Yes.
Even if it has nothing to do with truth. And
Great point.
And so, in my own mind, I constantly have to revert back and say, hey, why do I believe whatever it is that I believe? Do I believe it because it's true and it's proven true in my life and it's proven true through a variety of other things, the scriptures, my experience, or whatever? Or do I believe it because I heard ABC politician or ABC YouTuber, whoever it was, espouse something with no legitimate background on it? And so my hopes and my encouragement would be that you would feel, again, that it's a safe space and that you would let your voice be known and prove or disprove your convictions.
Yeah, I always say, and I'm going to wrap this up, I'm sorry I always say we tend to be sheep.
Oh.
And it's easy for us to follow somebody, like you said, who speaks the loudest.
Yeah.
I know from what you said, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for people to come in, to hear, express themselves, share, and be able to still participate but not get pulled into a captive role, but
Exactly.
to be free,
Yeah.
learn and expose themselves and expose others to this program.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing?
Yes, you can.
So these two dudes that I told you I met, one guy's name's Ethel Parker, and he's like a finance guy. So we met for dinner, and I was doing that because my wife and I would like to teach time, talent, and treasures in like every other week or something like that after we do Alpha. And this Ethel Parker had a quote. His is a little bit longer, but I've shortened it. And this is just, man, like blood to me, or life air. He said, desire is evidenced by pursuit. Desire is evidenced by pursuit. So you just said, what do I want to say to who's listening? If your desire is truth, if it really is truth, then you're going to pursue it. And it can be evidenced by joining a group like this and hearing things that you might be in opposition to, or hearing things that are strange or outside your worldview. But if it's truth, wouldn't you rather know it now and come to grips with it now and begin allowing it to affect your life? Desire is evidenced by pursuit. How much are you willing to pursue something?
Yes, yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much, Matthew. It sounds like a really exciting program. I don't know if I would go, but I'm not going to tell anybody not to. I mean, I might show up.
Okay.
But
Got a call first.
Yeah, I got a call. I got your information. But that was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you taking the time out, to come on to the hook and talk about that. Like I said, after you do your first one, maybe we can sit back down and we can find out how it went and where we're going to go from there, or where you're going to go from there.
Honestly, if you're game, I'd love to bring a couple of people who participated and let them do some of the talking as well.
We might be able to do that.
Cool.
Okay?
All right.
So everybody, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to The Hook today with my guest, Matthew Rojeck. There you have it about Alpha. And we're going to probably get back with him after his first program. This is the inaugural program this September 8th. So if you're interested, get out there. You've got the information. Give him a call. Sign up. Participate. Learn something. Broaden your views and open your mind. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And this is Keith Butler signing off for The Hook.